Welcome to the Balanced Ambition podcast. I'm your host, Matt Southam. Here, we delve into candid conversations with entrepreneurs, exploring both their business journey and their secrets to maintaining mental well-being. As we navigate the balance of ambition and inner peace, I hope you find insights, inspiration, and invaluable takeaways in every episode. Thank you for joining us. Hi, Adam. Welcome to Balanced Ambition. I'm really excited to have you here today. I know when we were just talking, I described you as an anti-time waster, and I'm sure you might reframe that slightly as we go. But give a bit of an indication of your background, your thought process on work, and how you've got to where you are today. I'd like you to tell us about Cronofy and how that helps teams, etc. But I'm really interested in that journey, and I guess your thought process behind that time management system. So yeah, over to you.
Whew, that's quite.
There was a lot to digest there, wasn't there? I sort of threw it all in.
Absolutely, Tell me everything.
Slow it down. Tell me a bit about what you're currently doing and how you got there.
Okay, so I CEO and co-founder of Cronofy. So we're scheduling infrastructure for companies. We power the scheduling for about 500 SaaS applications now. So if you get a website on GoDaddy, you want to take online appointments, it's Cronofy technology that's powering that kind of real-time calendar availability things. We've ended up doing an awful lot of work in the recruitment space. So about 70 different recruiting systems are using Cronofy to schedule interviews. And more recently, we're actually providing tools now direct to end users, scheduling a system that kind of connects into the recruiting system that the recruiters use, but provides that kind of sort of flexible, powerful recruiting that's going to save both the recruiter and the candidate an awful lot of time and shrinks the whole recruitment process and scheduling process down to hours rather than days.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, it is time management then, a lot of it. Or that's one thing you help save?
It is time management, but I think what we're doing is we're focusing on driving efficiencies where efficiencies should be driven. I've been in technology for 25 years, 30 years now. And where I've kind of seen the waves, this is my third AI wave, I think I've seen now.
Okay.
And I think what people have kind of gone through, I've seen this kind of repeated time and time again, is around this desire for automation and kind of replace people, replace things, just automate it all. And actually that never works because the real world is kind of messy and sticky and involves fleshy, confusing things like people. And so you have to kind of build in the kind of, I like to think of it as kind of augmentation of people rather than replacement of people. And so what we're trying to do is allow people, in many ways, when I've kind of a recurring theme throughout my kind of career is about just solving the kind of mundane and admin stuff so people can spend their time focusing on what's important, kind of what makes, in the case of recruiters don't get into recruitment to do admin. They get into recruitment because they're people. They like people. They want to help people. They want to kind of see people through their career. They like being part of people's career journeys. And technology should be used to allow them to do that rather than replacing their function. So
that makes sense.
So that's kind of my philosophy on that kind of thing.
Yeah. Do you think sometimes we over-optimize the things that don't need to be optimized?
I think we're sold dreams. I think a lot of software is sold in at kind of business kind of function head level. And they go, this is amazing. I can reduce my headcount by X, or I can increase efficiency by Y. And actually, there's no reflection on actually the detail of what people are doing. And what it starts to reveal is actually where people are really adding value. And these kind of processes start to break down because there aren't people kind of understanding kind of where the technology needs to be kind of nudged back along because something that wasn't in the script has happened. Humans are great at dealing with things that are not in the script. Computers are not.
Yeah, no, completely. We are resilient and problem solvers. That's our nature actually for things that are easy to automate. Then great idea, but dealing with humans. I think and any plan can be foolproof until you throw humans in. Unfortunately, we are the fools. That's
Right.
probably.
Mike Tyson's quote is quite good in that situation. But
Oh, go on. What's that?
you remember that one?
No, go on.
Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yes. Yes, of course. Yeah, famous quote. But it's so true. When it's
Yeah.
when things go wrong. And actually, I've found a lot of business leaders. Actually, one skill that most business leaders have is that problem solving under a bit of pressure. Because very often I've had team members come to me and say, oh, we've got this. How do we do this? How do we do this? And I managed to solve it. Now, it's not because I'm more intelligent. It's not because I'm better. It's just, I suppose, that skill of, well, I've got to. So I'm going to allow myself the time to do it. And I find that actually a lot of the time, that's one of the skills we need in business, being able to solve problems.
I think there's a luxury of being detached from the problem. That's what you get from kind of being outside of it. So you can immediately approach it from the outside, whereas someone immersed in the problem is immersed in the problem, and it's very hard to see the wood for the trees. So, I think that's the. I also think there's one thing leaders are also very good at is post-rationalization. I meant that.
Yeah.
And the success bias, and I think if you look at a lot of leadership books and guidance for how to be great leaders, it's all post-rationalization that I knew what I was doing, which is, let's be honest, we don't really. We're just trying to kind of wend our way through it.
Yeah, we're trying to muddle our way through and bring up. Like I was speaking to a friend, similar conversation a few days ago actually about bringing up children, and the conversation went that I remember being a child and looking at my parents thinking, well, they know everything. They have got this together. They know it all. I was in awe. And then now I'm a parent. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, my kids probably look at me in the same way, but I haven't got a clue. I'm just literally getting through this because we've got to.
Yeah. Yes. And that's a really, the moment you realize your parents are fallible, this kind of both empowers you and rocks your world.
Yeah. It's very true. So what building the business from the start, I read something on the website that was basically, it commented that other providers might have gone for the flashy front end UI look, make it look beautiful, but actually you were really keen to make this functional and work well for teams. And has that been a driving force? Is that your software background coming through?
So I guess, I'm a technologist at heart. I'm trained as an engineer, but ended up doing software engineering instead. Basically, I used software engineering to pay for university, and then had a kind of red pill, blue pill moment where I could do a PhD researching pollution flows behind vehicles or set up a company. And I went up to set up the company bit. That company went pop in 2000, very messy, learned a lot about actually you do need to have a sales function and sell things rather than just make things. But throughout, what I kind of moved into was very much, the last business was a kind of component and API business. So I've been building what are called APIs. So the way software communicates with each other.
Yeah.
Most people don't build the entire bit of software that runs their business. What they do is they compose lots of pieces of software from lots of different people. So, for example, you want to take payments. For example, you wouldn't build your own payment system. You use someone else, and your software uses APIs to use that. So I've been building those kind of components since about 2002, which is since way before they were cool. And so I think about things in terms of data flows, security permissions, kind of what is the kind of underlying infrastructure. I think of things as infrastructure rather than UI. And that's just my leaning. Yeah. And what I saw with calendars was you could only get so far with making a nice scheduling flow. Because the fundamental issue wasn't, that it's kind of an easy problem to solve. The fundamental issue was, how do I connect this piece of scheduling with the software that's running the workflow that needs that piece of scheduling? So in the case of recruiting, I'm hiring someone, and I've got to take someone through a series of steps in an interview process. That's my workflow. And at various points, I need to schedule an interview. So I can have a kind of live face-to-face interview with someone. And it's having that software, being able to have access to everyone's availability, work out who's available, work out who to offer the candidate, allow the candidate to pick a time in real time, and push that information back into the software. That was the little problem I chose to solve. Gary and I chose to solve, because that applies to all sorts of cases. Now, we have this grander vision that we're going to replace Google Calendar and Outlook in the way organizations manage their time. but one does not simply do that. That's quite a big thing to do. So we had to kind of go on a series of phases. So phase one was, okay, well, let's actually solve the technical infrastructure problems and provide that as a service to other software companies, so they don't have to.
Okay. Yeah.
So they can improve their systems. And back to that, what we're talking about with kind of composing systems out of other systems, what software teams now are trying to do is focus the precious resource they've got on building features that allow them to differentiate from everyone else, to solve the problems in a way that are different from everyone else. We went ahead and sort of commoditized, how do you connect to calendars? How do you work out when everyone's available? Problem. So no one else had to. So then we've become the de facto in the recruitment industry, as an example, in the recruitment tech industry. Okay. So then that's kind of how in many ways, you kind of, what's the word? I'm a hammer, and that problem looked like a nail, and so my nail is infrastructure problems, if you like.
Yeah, that makes it. Yeah, because we've all been in those email chains of, when you're available on Tuesday, and then someone else isn't, and then it comes back, and we've got to reschedule. And it's okay if there's 2, maybe even 3 of you. Above that, it just becomes the messiest task, and I guess that's the problem you solve.
Yes, fundamentally, yes.
Yeah. So you said your last business, there was sort of went pop and things like that. How did you sort of regroup?
That's my first one.
The first one,
so
sorry.
My first one went pop.
Yeah.
The second one did all right, had an exit. That was really my switch to being like a consultancy to a product business. So the second business was a company called Ascendex. We were providing text messaging services.
Yeah.
So if you were getting an Addison Lee in London, do you want to know your cab had arrived? Addison Lee would use us to send the text message with the registration number of the cab.
Yeah.
So you knew you were getting in the right vehicle from a safety perspective. Or Virgin Media or NTL as was, they would use us to send out text message to say, please be in. We're going to come and install your broadband, to make sure that people are actually in so they can install their broadband, doing all of those kind of things. And we did that for ultimately 6,500 customers across Europe and Australia, and learned an awful lot about selling a B2B business in a new space. Became an API business. That's where most of the value was. We were plugging into other people's systems, these operational systems. So, Ocado, for example, your groceries are going to be delivered. It's really valuable if someone's actually in for that, because you've got a perishable, there's a direct cost in doing that. So the more chance we get to have something coming in, the better it is. And then, grew that 80, 90 people, I think, when we sold that. It was bought by a kind of PE firm. And then it was like, right, what do I do now?
Find another problem and solve it.
Calendars annoy me. Let's see if I can solve that one.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what, say your biggest learnings from that first business that went pop to growing that second business to a large number and being able to exit, obviously quite successfully. What was the switch? What was the learning you got first time round that you think was really beneficial?
So business 1 to business 2 was sales is important. Very much I was in like Field of Dreams mindset in the first one. Build it and they'll come. I'm a builder. Surely people will just come and want me to build things for them. And so the second one was it was actually with a client. So he left his business. We kind of worked out and we kind of built this kind of product business with the vision that, you break an egg on a Sunday morning and you're still making money. It was kind of, that was the kind of the driving force there, but also that this was kind of a repeatable sales model. And so I could focus on the technology piece as the kind of CTO, and Julian, our co-founder, could focus on the kind of the commercial side of things. And between us, we could divide and conquer and build something significant.
Okay. Yeah, that makes complete sense. And calendars and all that, that's productivity. And I guess what would you say? I mean, I commented at the start, anti-time waster. I guess productivity comes into that. How do you say productive? How do you manage your day or structure your time so that you can do all of these things? Because you've clearly got some big ambitions still. You commented you were joking, and you've been here 25, 30 years, but it doesn't seem like you're looking to rest up anytime soon.
Well, this is my last business. My wife's told me. We've had a long conversation. I'm very irritable and not great to live with when I start businesses. So we've agreed that so I've got to make this one. This one absolutely has to work.
Yeah.
I joke. No, I think for me, there are real serious problems to solve. But I think foundation, what I've learned over the past probably 20 years, and I think this is building the second business and moving on to building this business, is that culture is most important. If, like, my learning from business two to business three was my last business, culture just kind of happened. And it was nice, and it was but it wasn't necessarily high performance. But it got to the point where it was very hard to impact and affect change for me as a business leader. So part of my motivation for going, or part of the kind of framework I was looking at for doing this again, was I need to absolutely be very deliberate about company culture, because I want to work in a high performance organization with ambitious people, and almost my job is to provide the framework for them to be successful and kind of be kind of nudging and steering rather than being in the weeds.
Yeah.
I also, whilst I'm a good CTO and I've got some good attributes for the kind of business we're building, needed someone far better than I ever was. So I met Gary years ago, and he's one of the rare people I could absolutely trust on the technical side. And now there's real power in the business is that me as the CEO now truly understands the technology and the delivery, because we are a technical delivery organization.
Tech firm.
But also I can just, that's a Gary-shaped problem, and it's wonderful there's a Gary-shaped problem. I don't even have to worry about it, which allows me to focus on I've taken Julian's role for my last business. I'm now doing that role, sort of commercial go-to-market, and doing what I'm good at, enjoy the most, which is kind of getting under the skin of customer problems and working out how to solve them. And I forget what your question was.
Well,
Sorry.
no, actually, it was sort of about productivity. We moved on to culture, and actually, I'm a big believer there that culture is absolutely key. And if you don't set it, exactly like you said, someone else will set it for you, and it just comes about. And then it's very tricky to change. Sometimes it's right, sometimes the culture isn't right, but trying to change it is incredibly hard. So yeah, you were really keen to set the culture from the outset.
So where I've come to on culture in the organization is I get really uncomfortable with the use of the term values. Lots of companies have values. This is how we think. And my concern with that is values are kind of implicitly judgmental. If you don't think like me, you're somehow less than me, or you're not as good as me. Because we have religious values, have political values, and especially if as we move into kind of modern era and the kind of way essentially social media has kind of driven this kind of polarization of discourse around values and thought, I really, really don't think there's any place for that in an organization. Because what you're doing is you're basically, if you go down a values route, you're kind of getting into this homogeneous, everyone's kind of the same, everyone's thinking the same. And I think if you truly want to kind of embrace diversity and want people to think differently, then you provide a framework for behavior, not for thought. And so we have what we call principles in our organization, and the principles describe how you behave at Cronofy rather than how you think. And that's a really, really important distinction, because it means anyone with any background, any way of thinking, if they want to behave in this way, they can be part of the Cronofy team. And those principles reflect how we act, but also how we want to act as well. So there's an element of ambition in those.
Yep.
But also they're done in concert with the entire organization. So they're a kind of an evolving set of principles. We kind of have our principles right now, but they've evolved. They've been through several iterations as we understand more about who we are as an organization, and also who we need to be and how we need to behave in order to be successful.
Yeah. And
that, for me, people are really surprised when they come and work with us about how truly we operate in that way. But it is our superpower as an organization, because it does free people up to say, right, okay, this is the framework for me making a decision. I can follow this. I don't care. Almost thought is irrelevant. My values are irrelevant. This is how we do things at Cronofy.
Yeah, and everyone follows it. Can you give me an example of one of your sort of
Um,
ways?
okay, I guess probably the foundational one, and the one that we live more than any other, a lot of companies, is truth.
Yeah.
Now, so, and I'll read the kind of point, because this is really, really important. So honesty is not just the right thing to do. Lies and half-truths can feel expedient in the short term, but the freedom gained from confronting the truth is where high performance and trust comes from. Now, there was a lot of resistance in the organization, in the team, around putting it in the line, lies and half-truths can feel expedient in the short term, because it felt negative. But myself and Gary kind of pushed back, because actually this is drawing a line. We are literally never going to, we're never going to lie to anyone.
Right.
Sorry. We also have a bit of a Rick Astley thing, so I was
Yeah.
never going to give you up. Yeah, it was like,
yeah, I can see it going.
yes. So yeah. So God, that's a Gary thing. These are Rick Roller extraordinaire. But yeah, so this idea around being absolutely, there's a kind of line we do not cross, and that pervades everything we're doing as an organization, and the way we communicate when there are issues, because part of our job is to provide a kind of service 24/7 for our customers. Now, with the best in the world, stuff does happen, and it's how we deal with that actually talks more to how we support our customers than pretending it didn't happen, or fibbing about how it happened, or just being a bit loose with the truth about why it happened.
Yeah.
We tell our customers exactly. And by forcing ourselves to always confront the truth, it means we don't have to remember what kind of fib or anything like this.
You told someone once.
Exactly. Just say it as it is. So it's completely free. But it's a really hard thing for people to get, because lots of organizations will say have honesty as a value. And what they mean is honesty to a point.
Yeah.
Honesty to a point where it might, oh, well, actually, that makes me feel a bit uncomfortable. I'll just sugarcoat that, or I'll just decorate that. And we're like, no, absolutely not. Truth is truth.
Yeah.
There's no gray area. So yeah, that's another good one, I think, is when this baby hits 142 kph.
Yeah.
So the magic happens when we operate at a speed that we can maintain long term. We favor guidelines over rules and constantly prioritize value delivery without sacrificing the future.
Yeah.
Now, for me, this is the reason it's 142 kph is that's 88 miles an hour in kilometers an hour. 88 miles an hour being the speed the DeLorean hit at for the time machine in Back to the Future. Yeah. It's all about time. So we love our pop culture references. But really what this is about is being truly agile as an organization. And agile with a small a rather than a big A. You may have sort of come across organizations and kind of Scrum methodologies and agile this and all that. Yeah. And there's umpteen consultants that will tell you how to be a better organization, or have an agile development team, or have an agile product team. For me, I kind of my kind of light bulb for me early in my career was the Agile Manifesto, which is kind of was written by a series of software and product people in Silicon Valley back in the kind of 99, I think, something like that. But and they came to the key book that came out of that was Extreme Programming Explained. But fundamentally, this is about finding, kind of maintaining velocity and delivery of stakeholder value. And you do that, and that has to pervade the entire organization. And you do that by trying to find the smallest unit of value you can deliver to stakeholders as quickly as possible, to get it in their hands, to get the feedback, to drive it back again.
Yeah.
And that's not about, we're doing a 2-week sprint process with a Kanban board. That is about literally what can we deliver today to our customers that they'll value and give us feedback on.
Yeah.
And doing that every day. Because if we do that every day, then we'll always be moving up and to the right. We'll always be
moving,
progressing,
always moving forward.
And not trying to go super quick, because you end up having to pay that back. It's a technical debt. It's an organizational debt. It's an overdraft you have to pay.
Yeah.
So just maintain that speed. And because we're building infrastructure that has to work, but we're also building an innovation in a way that no one else has done it before, it's a really interesting needle to thread, but we have to bring ourselves back all the time that we're building for today, but we're not forgetting about tomorrow.
Yeah, I love the line. It was, operate at a speed that we can maintain long term. And yeah, that's exactly it. So many people try and fly so quick, but actually, almost in anything in life, whether it's business, whether it's yourself as a person, you want to
Mm.
operate at optimum sort of speed, but that you can maintain, because
Yes.
burning out doesn't actually help or solve any issue.
No.
No.
No, it absolutely does not. No. Yes.
No. And how have you found building a business with, you said you had conversations with your wife, this is the last one. And,
Yeah.
because we do all bring the stresses of work home, or the pressures, or just the, even if it's not pressure, just the constant thought process. How do you sort of balance that to keep yourself from burning out or just working?
Um, I guess age helps an awful lot.
Wow.
I think there's value when you're young. You're kind of indestructible, and kind of, why not?
Yeah.
Just find where the edges are. I kind of look at the discourse on LinkedIn these days. That's about the only social network I'm on, begrudgingly. I think the kind of whole Twitter, Facebook thing has been incredibly, and in many ways, this is the thing. It's like we've had 15 years of social media telling us that all these people have this thing. You should be angry about that things.
Yep.
And you only have to do these two things and you'll get those things.
Yeah.
And that's the message of social media of the last 15 years, which is incredibly poisonous, because what it does, it disempowers people. People get frustrated because they're not getting success. And actually, an element of struggling and prevailing, that's part of growing.
Massively.
And the best time to do that is absolutely when you're young. You're just, because I've got kids who are in their early 20s. They don't listen to me. They never have. They've just got to make their own mistake. It's like,
well, they know it all anyway, don't they?
Well, yes and yes. And it's like, was it? There's back to quote Mark Twain quote. When I was 15, my father was the most ignorant person in the world. By the time I was 25, I'd amazed what the old guy had learned in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's like that kind of that thing where people have to make mistakes, but they're told, I think, by kind of a lot of that they don't have to put that effort in. So I'm not an advocate of, yes, you need to be careful. Yes, you need to make sure you're not kind of breaking relationships in the process. But at the same time, if you want to achieve things, you've got to put yourself in a position of discomfort.
Yeah,
absolutely. So, but also I think I've always been lucky by running my own businesses. I've been in charge of my own calendar, if you like.
Yeah.
So I've been able to say, you know what? I'm going to go to sports day, and I went to every sports day. I'm going to go to performance of whatever, just play whatever. It's cool. So you can be as part of your child's upbringing, and that's one thing I think is really, really positive about the move to more flexible working for everyone, is that can be supported, because that then by freeing up your time to be present at those important points, as you've kind of got more common ground as a family to talk about those things and those memories, and they're shared memories rather than your partner sharing some photos of sports day.
Yeah,
that is just not the same.
It's not the same.
No. And so I think, I've been in a really fortunate position that I've been able to essentially manage my time.
And do you implement that into the culture of the team? So do most people remote work? Is there some flexibility there, or?
Yeah, we've just got Flex's award for being flexible.
Okay,
that's fine. Yeah. So
the timing's perfect. Yes. Flexibility.
Yeah, indeed, absolutely. And that's really about before the pandemic, we were kind of primarily mixed or hybrid.
Yeah,
but we were doing everything remotely, but we were meeting each other quite a lot.
Yeah,
pandemic, fully remote. As we've come back, we're less hybrid. We're more remote than in person, but we still meet up on a regular basis. And what we do is try and encourage that meeting up on a regular basis. But also, we just trust the team. Part of our process is if you need some time to do something, you kind of let us know, rather than having to
try and
sign,
sneak it round or
ask.
whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. And we've got people working in Europe now as well for the team, and so there's a natural kind of, has to be a flexibility. There's got to be a common area, and really it's about maintaining dialogue about what's working. So if someone's actually, someone's not taking lunch breaks because they want to compress their working day, it's like, no, sorry, you need to actually take a break in the day. I love how you're trying to optimize your time, but that's not a productive optimization of your time.
No.
Go you, but no, that kind of thing. So, and this is where we're trying to provide that framework where it's a mature dialogue about time, and our job as an employer is to provide the environment where people can be successful and develop their careers. In return, what they give us is their best work.
Yeah.
That's the deal. And we work with them to work out what makes sense for them.
Yeah. I love that line about what your role is and their role is. I think that's what all employers should sort of strive towards. So, because we do want the best out of our team, but I think a lot of the time it's a bit too, stick and less carrot. And, I think we need to work with people to empower them to actually be productive, empower them for continuous learning, empower them to, really want to make a difference and be passionate about the business. And that in turn means that they will give their best work.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges is we have a whole cohort of managers who never work that way and are constantly under threat from the top as to your team needs to be productive. So I've got to control in order to make that productive. Yeah. There's no support from the top to say, okay, well, actually, you know what? As an organization, we recognize that, especially in knowledge work, the arena that I work in, the rules, we can afford to be more relaxed. We can understand people's performance in a different way. It's not just about them being in the office, 9 till 5:30. That's not how we measure performance. What we measure performance is on their contribution to the overall goals of the business.
Yeah.
And that's the conversation we can have. But that has to come from the top. And anyone trying to do that without that support outside is going to hit the edges very, very quickly. And they're going to have to take massive risks in order to truly make a flexible environment for their team. And people, they can't afford to take risks necessarily because their livelihood depends on it.
It depends on
so
it. Yeah,
it's the entire So the entire organization has to embrace it.
Yeah, completely. And I think we do see a lot of people move into management positions rather than leadership positions. And I think even just that terminology, there's lots of managers, and that role almost says you've got to manage this person's time rather than lead them. And I think so often companies are used to that traditional hierarchy based around bosses, managers, and things like that. Actually, we need to give better leadership training and allow people to actually empower their teams, not manage them in that traditional sense of what are you doing? I need more out of you, and whipping them into shape. I think there's different takes on it. And it's been really good to talk to you today. I just want to finish on one sort of final question of what advice would you give to someone coming into business, thinking of starting their own business? You hinted that when you're young, just go for it. But even if someone's a bit older, what advice would you give?
What advice? Don't listen to other people. Everyone's free and easy with their advice. They love to give their advice, but if someone's there's no one way of doing things. You have to find the way that works for you. And this is the problem with getting older. The answer to all of these things, well, it depends.
It depends.
That is because it does depend.
Yeah.
But always, I think, try and understand what it is you're trying to create and why you're trying to always come back to why are you trying to do this? What is your motivation?
Yeah.
If your motivation is just money because you're being sold this idea that you can exit for $100 million in 5 years, don't do this. Don't do this at all. Go and work at Google or Facebook or some organization that will pay you extraordinary amounts of money, or a hedge fund, or do that. If money's your objective, then do that. Now, If, though, you want to create to have an opportunity to create an organization that works in a particular way and solve a particular problem, and have, both the wondrous, the wondrous power and control of being in charge, along with all of the terrifying things about being in control and being in charge and people's livelihoods depending on you, then do that. But don't beat yourself up. It's really hard.
Yeah.
Don't look to other people as a benchmark for success. Always ask yourself, am I doing the best by myself and by my team? Is there more I could do based on the needs of my family, the needs of me, the needs of my team, the opportunity in the market? Just be mindful of every aspect of your life, because otherwise you'll just end up in dissatisfaction and burnout, which is quite a low way to end this. So can you give me a happy question?
Go on then. What's been your biggest win?
Don't do it, kids.
Yeah.
My advice.
What's been your biggest win though in the last 12 months then? Tell me, what's been a win or an achievement or something you're really proud of, either business or personal? We're going to go full flexibility here. What's one thing you look back at the last 12 months, bearing in mind we're into November next week, aren't we? We're coming up to the end of the year. What's been the highlight?
I think so. One thing I've always liked doing is building a business, is sort of creating the framework for people to grow their careers. And I'm often always happy that, like we had a sales guy who got himself a job at Amazon, pre-sales engineer for Amazon, earning a gazillion pounds, like twice as much money. And It was like, it's been wonderful, go for it. It's been, he was fantastic, but it was like, great, we've been part of your career journey, go with our blessings. It's been wonderful.
Yeah.
But actually what we're getting to the size now with the organization where we're starting to sort of develop our own people into kind of new roles. So we've had our first support engineer move into a full engineering role. So she joined us at a university, as kind of did her own learning and sort of supported by us, but it was basically her decision to try and develop her skills to the point where she could become a full-time engineer.
Yeah.
And she's the first one, and we've got a couple more in the wings as well. But that's that kind of point in an organization's development where you become kind of large enough, have the infrastructure enough to actually start seeing people grow and develop and move into different roles in the organization.
Yeah.
That's a real feel-good factor for everyone in the organization. It's kind of, it demonstrates that this is a place where they can develop their careers, where we're not going to hold them back.
No, I think that's really key. I can't remember if it was Richard Branson said, train people well enough that they can leave, and chances are they won't. And I think that's 100% true. Empower people. Don't hold them hostage to your company. Train them to be the best version of themselves. And even if they do leave, while they're there, they will reward you with high quality performance.
Yeah, and if you, the fact that you're not providing the opportunities to stay because they've kind of outgrown the organization, that's a company problem, not a them problem.
Yes. Yeah, completely. Oh, I think that was a positive ending. So
excellent, thank you.
Adam, it's been great to speak to you today. Thank you for joining me.
Pleasure. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Balanced Ambition podcast. I genuinely hope the stories inspire you as much as they inspire me. If you found value in today's conversation, please share it with a friend. And remember, by subscribing, you won't miss an episode, and it would truly mean the world to me. Stay balanced, and I'll see you next time.